Okay, so my name's Neil Hallam. I work for British Gas. So I'm here and I want to tell you a story about what we created, how we implemented the API gateway. So I'm going to go through a little bit of background about British Gas, a little bit about our structure, about the technology we have, the workforces that we have, and also what we've delivered. So I've got about 25 minutes to talk. I've got 10 slides to go through. I'll go through the first 6 slides fairly quickly and then concentrate on what the challenges that we went through and what we've actually delivered in British Gas. So I thought it might be useful to tell you who I am. I've worked in British Gas for about 13 years. For 15 years of my working life, I've been working on SAP implementations, and for the last 3 years, I've been working more with mobile applications for our engineers. So we've got about 15,000 field workforce in British Gas, and I look after delivery to the mobile devices and also the back-end systems that send information out to the mobile devices. Slide number 5 there. I guess I used to have a nice work-life balance, but I've got 4 children now, so that's all out of the window. I kind of work to escape from my home in many ways. And it's really nice being in Vegas. So I thought it'd be useful to talk a little bit about Centrica. So Centrica is the holding company that looks after Direct Energy. Direct Energy, I understand, is the largest utility and home services provider in North America. We have Bord Gáis, which is in Ireland. So again, it's home services, boiler maintenance and utility provision in Ireland. Centrica Energy, that's our upstream business. So that's exploration and production, power stations, energy trading, and British Gas. So that's the UK business. So we've got business to consumer, business to business, it's utilities, home services, finances, insurance, and smart homes as part of British Gas. So a little bit more about the history of British Gas. We can trace our roots back to 1812. So we're an old company, we're quite proud of our heritage. We started off as a gas light and coke company. And what we were doing then was providing street lighting. And we still do that in London. There's still 1,500 gas lamps around Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament. And we make sure that they're lit every day. So we were an old company, but in 1997, the industry was privatised in the UK. So we went through a bit of a transformation. Centrica was born. And we started diversifying into different things such as plumbing and drains, roadside services at the time, so a number of different workforces sort of came into the area. So I'm now going to sort of move on to how we tend to work. So most of our projects are waterfall projects. We've got a fairly steady operating model that says requirements up front, design before we actually start delivering anything, business benefits, and that isn't how we've delivered the API gateway, which is why I mention it now. So I'm now going to talk about British Gas brand, what we do, and how the API gateway fits into that. So I look after field workforces, or information going to the field workforces. We've got a number of those. There's about 20 separate workforces. They range in size from perhaps 20 people to 8,000 people, making up the 15,000 people in total. The runners have been run as separate business units. So different people doing different jobs, the jobs being sent from back-end systems up to mobile devices, different back-end systems for different business units. So very little integration going on. And I guess a lot of that's historic. We've got a mix of technologies. Some of it's 20 years old, an Oracle form system. We've got new SAP systems, Microsoft CRM, and we have Salesforce, SharePoint solutions, so a number of different things. Within the field workforce, so we've got people doing different job types. So we have boiler maintenance people, boiler installation people, they're separate, but actually they do have similar skills. And we found it difficult to actually share those resources across the business units. So that would mean actually moving resources between back-end systems and also getting the data out to the individuals. So where we store data in one back-end system, it's very much aligned to that workforce. So we weren't sharing data and we weren't sharing resources. And we knew it was something that we were going to need to do. So we have seasonal variations where some workforces are busier. We have some jobs that take 4 days but might finish earlier, which leaves the guy free to do other work. It might take longer, where he'd like some support to bring the timescales back in. So we were being challenged to allow a bit of flexibility around the workforce, and also give the guys data on the customer, common consistent data on the customer. So we had a number of different options around the data. So our managing director at the time suggested that we put our call center application out onto the mobile devices. So we did look at that, but a lot of our mobile devices are low powered. So we like to retain the battery life, or extend the battery life as long as possible, and minimize the use of our mobile network. So we didn't feel that was suitable. We looked at putting our website out to the engineers, slightly modifying that. But again, we thought we'd have some data issues there, and getting the data, common data across the different workforces through the website. So a couple of our IT directors suggested we have a mobile channel service platform, so a multi-channel service platform. So this is our idea of what a multi-channel service platform was. So this is going to serve consistent data out to different channels, whether it's call center, engineer, third parties. We'd be consistently able to reuse the data and services out. Now, this isn't necessarily what we've built, but we've got most of the components, but maybe in different boxes. But this was a vision of where we were heading. Now, we didn't want to run this as one of our standard projects. We didn't think that it would actually get anywhere. So we started off just by getting a small team together. So we had a couple of developers, a tester, a product owner, a business product owner there, and we had an IS technical product owner, a scrum master, a business analyst, and they were given the challenge: build something using a gateway that'll give consistent data out to our engineers as the first step. So what I want to talk about is the journey that we went on to get there, and how we ended up building our gateway. So this slide's a little bit of a mess, but I wanted to talk about the challenges that we found. So with a small team, we decided we'd just have a prototype. So we'd start off with mocked up data, but we'd have an API gateway, we'd have a mobile application, and just see where it got us. And I guess there's a number of different challenges came out. So we started talking about volumetrics, cloud hosting, gateway technologies, security, business understanding. And I guess the key ones here were security and business understanding. So just through the prototype, that kicked off a lot of security discussions. So we found the team saying, if we want to do this, this is how we'll set up the solution, how we'll secure it. And we had our internal information security team saying, no, that's not good enough. We don't like that. So we'd go away and come up with a new solution, additional security, and we'd go and see the information security team who'd say, no, that's not good enough. We don't like that. So we went through that a few times, and we weren't really making too much progress. So we introduced a different way of working. We decided we'd take responsibility into the team and start working more as a partnership with the security team. And the reason I'm raising this is that's kind of gone through how everything we do in the team now. So we're not relying on other external teams within British Gas to help us. We're actually taking ownership and responsibility ourselves, but with the sign-off of other teams. So with security, we started off iterating. We said, well, if we don't have sensitive data, are we okay to carry on? So we were okay with no sensitive data. We started restricting it down to a minimum number of customer records, to a very small geographical area. We restricted the number of engineers that could have access by the SIM cards on their mobile phones. So it started off as 3 engineers. As we iterated through and built more and more security around it, we increased the number of engineers. We introduced the sensitive data. To begin with, it was a 9-to-5 operation. And we're now 24/7 as we put more and more security constructs in place. So with security, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. We've got a SIEM and a SOC, so that's a security incident and event management system. So that throws out alerts when something happens. And a security operations center, that's the team that actually take action on those alerts. Now, we haven't managed that internally. We asked a third party to come and help us with that, because that wasn't core to the journey that we were going on. But one of the things that's helped us there, we used a log aggregation service to actually pass through to the SIEM. And we found that log aggregation really useful in the operation of the API gateway. So that allows us, outside of the security alerts, That allows us to compare traffic from day to day, from month to month. We can look at the contents of things. It tracks the logs of the API gateway and all the other components that we've built behind it. So we're finding that extremely useful. It almost came out by mistake as part of the SEAM implementation. The other thing that I said was important to us was business buy-in. So I guess we spent a bit of time talking about API gateway and what difference it would make. And we were speaking to the business users who didn't really understand what we were saying or why. So we put a lot of effort into going to team meetings, business conferences, just saying we're trying to build something that will give you the flexibility. It'll abstract your back-end systems from your mobile applications in this case. It'll allow you to reuse data, and we can run projects in a different way. And that was important to us. It helped us shape the direction we were going in, but also gave us a backlog of work to do. So I think without doing that, we'd have probably been sitting here today saying we've got an API gateway, but it's not really being used, and we're not really getting the best out of it. Okay, so if we take a look at the first thing that we delivered, so we call this a customer information app. So this went out to our engineers. It's the first time that they've actually had a view of the customer details across all our different workforces. Every single engineer could see this. So they started going into customer houses, understanding when the last time the customer phoned the call center about anything, what products they had with us, any concerns a customer might have had. And in fact, it's the first time that they've been able to see whether the customer was perhaps a vulnerable customer and they needed to take care going into the house. So whilst prior to this, within each work stream, within each workforce, they might be classed as a vulnerable customer. We wouldn't be sharing the information across the system, so it gave the engineer a good insight into the situation that they were walking into. We trialled this out with some of the customers as well, our end customers, and we had good feedback. They could understand why the engineer was wanting to talk to them. Great feedback from the engineer, really pleased that we were putting the tool in their hands. And I guess something else they were saying was it seemed to be the first time in IS we'd delivered something to them that wasn't core to their role. They wouldn't necessarily need this to go into a house and do the job to fix a boiler, to put a solar panel in, but it was over and above what they needed, and they were quite grateful to us for that. I think it enhanced our reputation a bit, and at times our reputation in IS did need enhancing. So the next slide's the key slide. So this is what we've actually delivered, and I want to talk a bit about this for 5 or 6 minutes. Again, it's not the prettiest of slides, but it is our landscape. So we have the API gateway sitting in a cloud. Again, I'm quite impressed that we've managed to get it out in a cloud. It's the gateway into our data centers, but it's sitting outside of our data centers. Having it hosted in the cloud gives us more flexibility, so it was quite important to us, but it did drive a lot of those security concerns that we had. Sitting behind that, we have a microservices layer, and then we have a Couchbase NoSQL database. So that's we use that as a forward data store. That is sitting in a data center at the moment. We have a Hadoop data lake, so that existed within our architecture, so that's taking out almost all the information from our systems of record and sitting in the data lake, and we use Hadoop to feed Couchbase as our forward data store. So when we're calling for APIs, they're held as JSON documents in the Couchbase layer. It gives us super fast, super quick response times. So from somebody on the mobile phone saying, yes, I want this information, it can be as quick as 30 milliseconds before the information is coming back to them. We try and keep the API calls away from our systems of record to keep the load off those, which is why we have the data going into Couchbase. But at times, if Couchbase doesn't have that data, it then filters through to the source system and sends the data back. So that's the architecture we have. I now want to talk about the boxes at the top. So we had the customer information app that I've already talked about out with the engineers. Salesforce is the next box. So one of our larger workforces uses Salesforce as its call center software and getting the jobs out to engineers. They're the home installation guys. Now, they install central heating there, and it's unlikely they have repeat business. So they speak to a customer, the customer buys central heating for us, a salesman will speak to them, Engineers go out and do the installation, and that's it. We don't normally speak to them in that business unit again for another 20 years. So we repurposed the customer information app feed, the API, reconfigured it, or reconfigured the security, and then suddenly we had the agents in the home installations business able to see the full history of our customers, of customers that were speaking to them. So a lot of the guys wouldn't be British Gas customers who were asking for installations, but the ones that were, they were able to have a better conversation with them. So there was no code involved there, it was just reusing the API. It took us about a week to do. Prior to having this in place, that would have taken us months. You know, we can be quite slow moving at times. So quite a good success story. Now the next box along, again, it's about repurposing the same API. We have a partnership with one of our UK insurance companies. When you go onto the insurance website and buy a product, if you're a British Gas customer, you get a discount. Now we've had a feed in place from our systems to the insurance company for a number of years, but by moving over to using this API, it increased the accuracy, and we found sales immediately were going up by 20%. So again, there's no code needed to do this. It's just reconfiguration, security wrapped around it because we're feeding information to a third party, but an immediate jump in sales. So really, really good for us. I guess I don't necessarily sound that excited about it, but it was quite a big win. So the next box is, I'll talk about the next two boxes together. So these are a couple of our workforces. One of them looks after the installation of smart meters. The other workforce is our boiler maintenance and repair and servicing team. So this wasn't quite so simple. This wasn't a sort of 1 week job. So we have the information in the back end systems. This doesn't feed directly into Couchbase. So we've built a middleware layer that'll consume the information from the back end systems. It orchestrates it, manages it, and then puts it into our Couchbase layer ready to go up to the mobile. That is quite complicated. We put an awful lot of effort into the orchestration, and we're still putting effort into it. But now that we've got it into Couchbase, where information's common between the two business units, where we have common jobs, we can send out the common APIs to that. Some of the information is individual to the business unit, so those APIs are restricted to that business unit. What we've also found through doing that, whilst we're exposing the APIs, and it is still an internal team that are building the mobile applications there, it doesn't need to be. Our business units could be going to a third party saying, we've got these APIs, just go and build our applications for us. So it's taking some of our internal IS restrictions out of the picture. It's opening us up. It's allowing the business guys to self-serve. So we're not actually at the self-serve stage yet. Nobody from the business, I guess, has realised they could go and speak to anybody to build their applications. But it's there. It's open for them. And again, this will move us forward in the way that we work. With doing that, we've now got, having put that in place, we now have abstracted mobile applications for those two workforces compared to our back-end systems. And so we've got plans now to make changes to the back-end systems which won't impact the mobile devices. One of the reasons that's important to us, some of our applications are fairly simple. You can get updates out there quite quickly. Other applications, the guys in the field have got Microsoft PCs with Microsoft Windows on. It's difficult to get updates out there. It can take weeks and weeks for it to roll round to every engineer. So we don't necessarily like making changes to the mobile side of things at the same time as the back end, but we can now run larger projects on our back end systems without impacting mobile. And where it does, we've split out any dependencies. So again, that frees us up to do further work. So the next box is a little different. This is about our HR system. So we used to have an internal HR system where I'd go onto my Centrica laptop and I could see my details, my team details, my salary, much as what it is, my holidays, which seem to disappear. But we've now moved to a HR system which is software as a service, so it's externally hosted. Now you can still access it from our systems internally. I guess we've got a pipeline open there. But we've used the gateway to authenticate our usage for personal devices. So I can now go on my personal mobile phone and see my HR details, my team details. The first time I use it, I put my Centrica LAN ID, my username and password in. The gateway puts a certificate onto my mobile phone or my home PC, and I'll then have access. And again, it was complicated getting the security in place and putting it through testing, but it actually wasn't a lot of work. It was 3 or 4 days worth of effort to put the solution in place. And again, it's fantastic. So I'm not restricted to my Centrica device, and it's authenticating my personal device, and it's making sure that the data gets to my personal device in a secure manner. It's not making sure that my personal device is secure. So it's not managing the device, but it's doing all the job that we need it to for the HR data. So the next box and the final box that I really want to talk about, so it says connected boilers, but I don't want to talk about our connected boiler app. There's a couple of requirements that we had from our business users, and they were urgent requirements. So they wanted to let our engineers know when to speak to a customer if a customer was eligible for a connected boiler. So one of the Internet of Things boilers. Also, they wanted an engineer to speak to a customer if they're eligible for a smart meter. So we're going for a smart meter rollout in the UK, but with certain types of customers we can't target at the moment. They're not necessarily on tariffs that our smart meters will cope with. We also want to replace the older meters rather than newer meters, and some customers are already on smart metering. So historically, we'd have been making changes to quite a few back-end systems to get the information out to engineers. We might have been making changes to mobile applications. But with this setup, all we had to do was change the feed in from Hadoop to Couchbase. So just adding some flags around the customers, adding the information. And although we made the change in IS, it was almost a business change. Feed us the data in Excel, get it matched in Hadoop, that flows up to Couchbase, and that immediately then appears in the customer information app for the engineers. So it took us off the critical path for projects, allowed us to deliver things quickly and easily. Now, it's not the final solution there, it's something quick to get it out to the engineers, and we will, as and when we make changes to the back-end systems and the other mobile apps, we'll build it into that, but it allows us to work more flexibly and I guess gives the guys the minimum amounts that they would like to see. Right, so I've got one more slide, which is around, I guess, conclusions and next steps. And I haven't really prepared too much on what to say on this slide. So there's some things that we are going to be doing. So I talked about the SIEM and the SOC. We set that up just for this solution. And we now need to start looking at strategically, is that right for us? We've got a wider cloud program, so we might be moving away from that. Now, again, I don't see that being too difficult for this team. Where we use a log aggregator service, I think we'll just be swinging that over to whatever solution we go to, or maybe keeping it where it is. So that's something we'll be concentrating on. The other thing that we haven't got quite right is our data at rest. So we've got the data in transit sitting in, on the last slide, sitting in the API gateway in the cloud, but the data at rest sitting in a data center at the moment. And actually, just to give us flexibility in the way we work, we'd like to push that out to the cloud again. So that'll be another round of security iterations, working with the security team, putting some of the data out there, keeping other bits of the data back in a data center until we're sure we've understood the risks, managed those, and got the right security configuration in place to allow us to push it up there. I did have a microservices box on my previous slide. We're investigating them. We're making some use of them. We're not really flouting that at the moment. So there's more work to do in that area. And I guess the one thing that I haven't really talked about, and I should have covered in one of the previous slides, is the way that we manage our production updates. So we've got the green-blue deployment methodology that you might have come across. So we're doing in-day deployments, upgrades. We don't have people working overnight managing the deployments. We can move forward, we can flip back really quickly. So again, that's something that's given the team a lot of flexibility and allowed them to manage multiple changes in parallel, in-day deployments and multiple and deployments going one after another on top of each other. So I think if there's key messages I'd like you to take away from this, it's possibly about the way that we work to implement it. So whilst I showed you a slide that said this was our vision, it doesn't match that. You know, we didn't have an end game. We didn't say this is what we're going to do. We didn't have a design. We sort of meandered towards it, and meandered towards this, and we'll carry on meandering a little bit as well. But I think that was a really good way to implement an API gateway within British Gas. I think if we'd have said we need it designed, we'd still be talking about the technologies that we should be using, volumetrics. We probably wouldn't have actually had anything out in production. So I'm quite proud of the team, the way they tackled that. And I guess the other thing I'd just like to say, we've had benefits left, right, and centre from doing it that we weren't necessarily expecting to have. So if it's something that you don't have at the moment, I would consider whether it is something that would suit you, whether you can abstract your IS architecture, because it will just make almost your world a better place to be working in, rather than having people saying to you, can we do this, and saying, well, we'll have to design that, we'll have to look at it. This sort of setup allows you to deliver far more quickly. Okay, so I guess I've got about 4 minutes left, so it's time for any questions, if there are. So, would you like to use a microphone, if that's okay? Yep.
So how much logic do you build into your services? Do you orchestrate the lower level services?
So we have a lot of, if I understand the question correctly, we have a lot of logic built into the metering and middleware boxes there. There's not too much logic built into the other services. So where we have the data coming from the systems of record into Hadoop, so whilst I can say we're not building in logic there, the guys looking after Hadoop may already be putting the logic in place before we then move it up into the Couchbase layer. For services coming backwards, which we have for smart metering, boiler repair, and a couple of other areas that aren't on the slide. Again, we've got logic built into the metering and middleware boxes to manage those before they go back.
So none in the gateway. The gateway just, you pass requests through using the gateway, but don't build logic in there. Is that right?
I believe so, but if I look over here, I'll see if somebody nods or not. We have some logic in the gateway.
Right, okay.
Okay.
But limited, you're limited, do you? Right.
So for other people to hear, just via the proxies, I think, policies.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I've got another question.
Yep.
So if you're looking to expose it to, you said potentially third parties might build your mobile app, or
yep.
Have you got the developer portal as well to enable discovery for other developers to use your services?
So as a principle, we have the developer portal, but we haven't really opened it up.
Right.
So we're not using it. And to tell you the truth, I've just had a look at it in one of the stands over there, and it seems relatively straightforward.
Yeah, okay.
To use and put in place. So we don't have any third parties at the moment.
Yeah.
And technically we're not allowing them in, but that's just because nobody's asked us. So we've said to people, you can do this if you want, but nobody's said, can we do it?
Right, okay. Good, thanks.
Yep. So any other questions?
You mentioned the mobile stuff you did with the search. Is it mobile access gateway that you're using, or is right? Okay.
Yes, it's mobile access gateway. Any other questions that I might struggle to answer? No? If you do have anything and you want to see me afterwards, please do. But thank you very much for your time, very much appreciated. Thank you.